83 bikers surrounded a school to protect a boy from a kidnapper. What happened next shocked the town. This isn't the kind of story you hear every day. And by the time we get to the moment those 83 bikes roared up to the school gates, the entire town would be standing at their windows, wondering who the bikers had come for and why. But trust me, what happened before that moment is even more unbelievable. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you love real-life stories where ordinary kids become unexpected heroes, make sure you like the video and subscribe. It helps more people discover these stories, and it keeps us going. Now let's get into it. Ethan Brooks was the kind of kid who tried to take up as little space in the world as possible. 9 years old, backpack nearly swallowing his entire frame, shoes that had needed replacing a year ago, and a jacket he practically lived in so nobody would notice him. He walked the same cracked sidewalk every morning to Riverside Elementary with his head down, praying each day would be quiet, invisible, safe. But safety was a luxury he hadn't felt in 6 long months. Not since the day his father disappeared without warning, without goodbye, without anything but a cryptic letter that made his mother's hands shake. Everyone said he'd run off. Everyone except Ethan. And the man who kept watching him from the gray sedan knew Ethan didn't believe the lie. That man made sure Ethan never forgot he was being hunted. So that morning, as Ethan hurried to school, he walked fast and breathed slow, hoping the gray car wouldn't appear, hoping he wouldn't hear the engine, hoping he wouldn't have to run as he had so many times before. But when Ethan turned the corner, he froze. Motorcycles, big gleaming machines lined up like a chrome army, were parked along the school sidewalk. Black tanks, custom bars, engines big enough to shake the pavement. Kids whispered, teachers stared, and adults driving past slowed down just to get a better look. And every single one of those bikes belonged to the Hells Angels. Ethan's pulse spiked. He'd heard stories. Everyone had stories about bikers stepping in when the system failed. Stories about them protecting kids, protecting families, protecting people no one else defended. Some said the Angels were dangerous. Some said they were heroes. But all Ethan saw were giants in black vests, boots, gloves, tattoos, and eyes sharp enough to cut through walls. He didn't understand why they were here. He didn't know they were here for him. One of the bikers peeled away from the group. Broad shoulders, white beard, vest heavy with patches. The kind of man whose presence filled an entire sidewalk. "You, Ethan?" he asked. Ethan felt his throat clamped shut. He stepped back. "I know." The biker crouched, meeting him at eye level. "Kid, you don't have to be scared of us." But Ethan was scared. Not of the biker, no, of what it meant that someone this big, this serious was saying his name. "I don't want trouble," Ethan whispered. The biker shook his head slowly. "Trouble has already found you. We're just here to make sure it doesn't swallow you whole." Kids were filing into the building now. Teachers whispered urgently among themselves. Even the principal stood stiffly at the door, pretending she wasn't terrified. The biker extended a hand. "Name's Hawk." Ethan didn't take it. He stared at the ground instead. "Who told you to come here?" Ethan asked, voice trembling. "Your mother," Hawk said. "Mrs. Brooks, she saw the man following you." Ethan felt the world tilt. She wasn't supposed to tell anyone. She wasn't supposed to let anyone see. Hawk continued in a low voice, one only Ethan could hear. "She filed reports. Cops didn't move fast enough. They said they're investigating. Meanwhile, you're stuck being hunted by a man who shouldn't be anywhere near a kid." Ethan's breath hitched. He blinked fast, fighting the burn in his eyes. "Kid, we're not here to scare you," Hawk said. "We're here because someone should have protected you a long time ago, and they didn't." A sudden gust of wind carried the low rumble of another engine turning the corner. Then another and another. More bikes, more angels, more patch-covered vests. Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. The low rumble grew louder as more bikes pulled up one after another, forming a steel and chrome wall along the front of the school. Kids stopped walking. Teachers froze mid-step. Even cars slowed to a crawl, drivers pulling out their phones to film what looked like the beginning of a riot or a rescue. Ethan stood there, tiny and trembling, as Hawk rose to his full towering height. Behind him, more bikers dismounted, boots thudding on the pavement, leather creaking as they adjusted their vests. Some crossed their arms, some rested their hands on their belts. Some simply watched Ethan with the kind of quiet seriousness that made the air feel heavier. He didn't understand why the Hells Angels, 83 of them, were standing outside his school. He didn't understand why they cared. He didn't understand why Hawk looked at him like he wasn't just another invisible kid slipping through the cracks. But he was starting to understand one thing. They weren't leaving. "Easy, boys," Hawk said without turning around. "We ain't here to scare the kid." A biker with a shaved head and mirrored sunglasses let out a rough chuckle. "Too late for that, Hawk. We look like we're here to start a war." Hawk shot him a look that shut him up real quick. Then he crouched again, softer this time. "Kid, you don't have to be afraid anymore," Hawk said. "Not today." Ethan's breath caught. His stomach twisted. "The man in the gray car, he'll come for me," Ethan whispered. Hawk nodded slowly. "We know." Ethan's body tightened. "And you're just going to stop him?" Hawk didn't smile. He didn't brag. He didn't puff his chest. He simply rested a hand over his vest, over a patch Ethan didn't recognize, and said quietly, "We don't let predators near kids. Not on our watch." Before Ethan could answer, the school doors burst open. Principal Martinez rushed down the steps, hair bouncing, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. "You can't be here. This is a school, not a biker meeting." Behind her, Miss Chin appeared. She didn't look angry or scared. She looked relieved. Hawk stood, turning to face them, calm as stone. "Ma'am," he said politely, "we're here because one of your students has a problem." Principal Martinez sputtered. "You can't just bring a gang to my school." "It's a club," Miss Chin corrected softly. "And his mother called them." Martinez whipped toward her. "She what?" Miss Chin stepped between Ethan and the principal as if shielding him. The system wasn't helping. "They can." The principal looked like she'd explode. "I'm calling the police." Hawk shrugged. "Go ahead." Another biker, tall, tattooed, with a chain hanging from his belt, leaned back against his Harley and smirked. "Tell them Hawk said hi." Principal Martinez stormed back toward the office, muttering something about lawsuits and bad press. "And this is not happening." But Miss Chin stayed. She knelt in front of Ethan. "Ethan," she said gently, "I know this is scary, but you're safe. You hear me? You're safe." Ethan nodded, though he didn't feel it. Not yet, because he knew the man. The man didn't back down. The man didn't care about rules or laws. The man cared about taking him. "What if he comes here?" Ethan whispered. Miss Chin glanced at the bikers behind her. Then she smiled, confident, steady. "He won't get past them." A fresh wave of engines thundered in the distance. More bikes, more angels, more boots hitting the ground. The school was surrounded now, but Ethan didn't know the worst part yet. The man had already seen the videos. He was already furious, and he was already on his way. By lunchtime, the entire town knew. Videos were everywhere. TikTok, Facebook, and local community pages. Clips of 83 Hells Angels forming a protective wall outside Riverside Elementary. Leather vests flashing in the sunlight. Engines rumbling like thunder against the school brick. Some thought it was a protest. Some thought it was a raid. Some thought a student had done something terrible. But none of them knew the truth. Not yet. Inside the school, Ethan sat at a corner table in the cafeteria with untouched food on his tray. Jacket pulled tight around his face. Kids stared like he was radioactive. Whispers bounced across the room. "Is that the kid? I heard the bikers are here for him. Something about a kidnapper. My mom said he's in danger. Do you think someone's coming to take him?" Ethan kept his eyes on the floor, but every word felt like a pin pushed under his skin. Miss Chin had stayed with him all morning, but she had a meeting now. Hawk and a few bikers stood outside the cafeteria windows, watching, guarding, making sure no one got near him. Their presence should have made him feel safe, but he couldn't stop hearing it. The man's voice, deep, cold, calculating from the night he'd cornered Ethan in the parking lot 6 months ago. Your father had something that belongs to me. You're going to help me get it back. Or you're coming with me instead. A sudden vibration buzzed against his thigh. He pulled out the phone his mother had given him. So we can always reach you. Incoming message. Unknown number. Ethan's blood ran cold. He swallowed and opened the message. I'm outside. Come now, or I'm coming in. Ethan's breathing hitched. His fingers shook. He typed back quickly, terrified. I'm in school. I can't leave. Dots appeared instantly. Typing fast, aggressive. You think those bikers scare me? Get out here now, or everyone inside gets hurt. Ethan's throat closed. He scanned the cafeteria. Nobody knew. Nobody even looked his way anymore. He slipped out of his seat quietly, sliding along the wall. If the man caused a scene, if he walked into school, if he took Ethan, someone would get hurt. Ethan knew that. The man didn't care who. He crept toward the back door, the one leading to the staff parking lot, the one teachers rarely used during lunch. But the moment he touched the metal push bar, a hand closed around his wrist. Firm, warm, steady. Whoa there, kid. Ethan whipped around. One of the bikers, tall, olive skin, dark beard braided at the end, was kneeling in front of the exit, a watchful look in his eyes. His patch read Steele. Steele's voice was low. Why are you trying to sneak out? Ethan yanked his arm back. I wasn't. I just... Steele tilted his head and lifted an eyebrow. Your phone. Give it. No. Steele didn't raise his voice. He didn't force anything. He just held out his hand. Ethan, give me the phone. Something in his tone, calm but heavy, made Ethan obey. Steele glanced at the screen. When he saw the message, his expression changed instantly. His jaw clenched. His nostrils flared. The warmth in his eyes vanished. He stood up so fast the air shifted. Hawk, he growled into his radio. We've got a problem. Ethan's heart dropped. No, please don't. He'll hurt people. He'll. Steele crouched down again, gripping Ethan's shoulders gently but firmly. He ain't laying a damn finger on you. Not today. Not ever again. Metal engines roared outside. Boots thudded. Voices rose. Hawk's voice crackled through the radio. He's here. Steele's eyes darkened. Kid, he said quietly. Stay behind me. Through the cafeteria windows, students gasped. A gray sedan screeched into the parking lot. Tires smoking, doors slamming open so hard it bounced. A man stepped out, lean, coiled like a spring, eyes scanning with predatory focus. He wasn't rushing. He was calculating, measuring every angle, every exit, every threat. This was Marcus Vance, the man who'd been hunting Ethan for 6 months. The man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. He wasn't walking toward the school like someone coming to pick up a child. He was approaching like a hunter closing in on prey. Marcus Vance didn't walk toward the school like a man coming to pick up a child. He came like a man coming to collect property. His sedan was still rocking from where he'd slammed the door. And the way he moved across the parking lot, shoulders loose, eyes calculating, hands visible but ready, made several teachers yank students away from the windows. Even the security guard froze, hands hovering above his belt like he wasn't sure if he should intervene or run. But the bikers didn't freeze. They moved fast. Hawk stepped off the curb first, boots striking the pavement with a heavy thud that echoed across the lot. Steele was a step behind him, radiating tension like heat off asphalt. The other angels formed a semicircle in front of the entrance. Leather vests shifting, chains rattling, muscles tightening beneath tattoos that looked like warnings. It wasn't a wall. It was a fortress. Vance didn't slow down. He didn't even flinch. He was too controlled, too calculating, too certain that intimidation was his best weapon. His voice cut across the parking lot like ice. Where is he? Nearby kids flinched. Teachers ducked back inside. Even a few adults who had parked nearby reconsidered getting out of their vehicles. Hawk didn't move. You must be Vance. Vance's eyes narrowed. Move. The boy comes with me. Hawk didn't blink. School property, sir. Turn around. You think I care about school property? Vance said, voice dropping to something dangerous. That boy has something that belongs to me. I'll take him wherever I damn well please. Steele growled from behind Hawk. Ain't nobody taking that kid. Shut your mouth, Vance snapped. Where is Ethan? The way he said Ethan's name, as he owned it, sent a wave of disgust rippling through the biker line. Behind the bikers, just inside the glass cafeteria doors, Ethan pressed himself against the wall, breath rapid and shallow. Steele had moved him back away from the windows, away from sight, but not away from the sound. Ethan knew that voice too well, knew its coldness, knew the threats underneath it, and he knew what came next. I should have known, Vance snarled, pacing in front of the bikers. Someone got to him, filled his head with lies. But it doesn't matter. What his father stole from me is mine, and that boy knows where it is. He doesn't know a damn thing, Hawk replied coolly. Vance stopped pacing. Then why are you here? Because a kid's in danger, Hawk said, and nobody else stepped up. You don't know a thing about our situation, Vance spat. Steele stepped forward just enough to make Vance notice. We know enough. Vance scoffed. What? That he's confused? That he doesn't understand? That his father was a thief who took something worth millions? You think some bikes make you heroes? Steele leaned in, voice low and dangerous. Kids don't get hunted like that unless the hunter's the real criminal. Vance's mouth twisted into a smile that chilled the bikers more than his coldness ever could. You don't know what that boy's father did, he hissed. You don't know what he took from me. Stop talking, Hawk said, voice suddenly steel. Vance's eyes bulged. You don't tell me what to. Hawk's tone didn't rise. That made it scarier. Because the more you talk, the more you tell us exactly who you are. Vance finally registered the circle of cameras behind him. Teachers filming from windows, parents recording from their cars, a few brave high schoolers who had driven by and pulled out their phones. His face twisted with frustration. He reached into his jacket pocket slowly, deliberately, muttering, That's it. I've had enough. Before he could pull anything out, 3 bikers stepped in front of him so fast, it was like a single shadow moved. Hawk's voice sliced through the tension. Don't. Vance's jaw clenched. Get out of my way. No, Hawk repeated. Vance's hand tightened inside his jacket. I have every right to that boy. You lost that right, Hawk said, the minute you started hunting him. For the first time, Vance hesitated just a beat. But Hawk saw it. Steele saw it. All 83 bikers saw it. Ethan saw it, too. Through the cafeteria window, his small face appeared between the blinds. He trembled so hard the glass around him seemed to vibrate. But he couldn't look away, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe because Vance wasn't alone now. A second car pulled up. A black SUV with tinted windows. 2 figures stepped out. Both men, both large, both moving with military precision. One wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. The other had a scar running down his jawline. Hawk muttered under his breath. Oh, that's bad. Steele spat. He brought backup. The scarred man cracked his knuckles and rolled his shoulders. Well, he drawled. Looks like we're outnumbered. Then he grinned. But I like those odds. Steele stepped forward instantly, fury rising in his chest. You stepped toward that building, Steele jabbed a finger at him. And I swear, Steele, Hawk murmured. Stand down. You serious? Steele snapped. They came ready for a fight. I know, Hawk said quietly. But so did we. Behind them, engines revved. All 83. Ethan pressed his forehead to the glass. He whispered, Please, please don't get hurt because of me. Inside, teachers ushered students away from the windows. Principal Martinez grabbed the phone, yelling something about calling the district and the police, and maybe the FBI. But Miss Chin stayed. She stayed right next to Ethan, crouched beside him, hand resting on his shaking shoulder. She whispered, They're here because someone should have protected you long ago. Let them. Outside, Vance took another step forward. So, here's what's going to happen, Vance snarled. You're going to hand him over right now, or my associates and I are walking in there ourselves. Hawk's jaw tightened. No, you're done hunting that boy. Vance barked a laugh, but it came out strained, desperate. You think you can stop me? Hawk stepped so close that Vance had to tilt his head up. We already did. Vance reached for something inside his jacket. Full force, fast movement. It never finished. Steel caught Vance's wrist mid-motion with a crack like splitting wood. Vance gasped. The scarred man lunged. Every biker moved. And the fight that followed, it would be talked about in that town for years. The world snapped into fragments. Shouts, footsteps, slamming doors, the distant moan of police sirens, and Ethan felt as if everything were happening underwater. Vance was on the ground, pinned by Hawk and Steel, both of them holding him with the precision of men who'd done this before. The rest of the Hells Angels formed a wall around them, boots planted, back straight, every vest like a shield. But Vance didn't stop fighting. He thrashed violently, spitting words, his voice raw. You think you can keep him from me? That kid knows where it is. He's the only one who can lead me to it. To what? Hawk's arm flexed, muscles tightening as he held Vance's wrists behind his back. You're done, Vance. Don't make this worse for yourself. Vance snarled like an animal. His father stole a flash drive. Encrypted files are worth millions. The boy knows where it is. He has to. Steel shoved Vance's face back down to the pavement. The kid doesn't know anything. You're hunting a child for nothing. The tension in the air stretched thin enough to cut. Police cruisers skidded into the lot a split second later, red and blue lights flashing against the windows. Officers jumped out, hands on holsters, unsure what they were running into, only to freeze at the wall of Hell's Angels between them and the men on the ground. Hawk lifted his chin at the officers. We need detective units now. This man's been stalking a 9-year-old for 6 months. One officer approached cautiously. Step back. No, Hawk said. Not until you guarantee his safety. The officer hesitated. That wasn't a request. It was a line in the sand. But then, Principal Martinez sprinted out of the building, breathless, clutching her walkie like it was a lifeline. Officers, please, she said, pointing toward Ethan. The bikers are protecting the child. Marcus Vance has been under investigation for months. The mother filed reports. Check your system. The officers exchanged looks. One tapped his radio, listening. His face changed. He nodded sharply. All right, we've been updated. We'll take it from here. 2 officers cuffed Vance, but even in chains, he kept lunging, screaming, spitting. That boy knows. He knows where it is. Steel snapped. He didn't hit him. He didn't grab him. He simply leaned close enough for Vance to hear one sentence. Quiet, sharp, deadly. You will never touch him again. Vance's face blanched. For the first time, real fear cracked through the rage. He was shoved into the back of the cruiser. The door slammed. The car shook as he kicked the inside. The 2 men from the SUV were being cuffed as well, resistance futile against the combined presence of bikers and law enforcement. Ethan stood frozen by the building wall. Every breath is a tremble. Steel turned and knelt in front of him, voice softer than Ethan had ever heard it. You did well, kid. Real good. Ethan shook his head. I didn't do anything. I almost went outside. Hey. Steel tapped his chest gently. You reached out. You told the truth. That was enough. Hawk joined them. He wasn't the growling, intimidating force Ethan had seen minutes earlier. He looked almost gentle. You hungry? Hawk asked. Ethan blinked. What? You've got to be starving after all that. Hawk glanced at Principal Martinez and nodded toward the cafeteria. They got pizza today. Principal Martinez blinked. Oh, yes. Hawk grinned. Then the boy needs pizza. Ethan let out a breath that turned into a tiny, broken laugh. He didn't even know where it came from. Hawk ruffled his hair. It wasn't rough. It wasn't patronizing. It was warm. But just as the tightness in Ethan's chest started to loosen, a new voice broke through the air. Hawk, Steel, we've got a problem. It was Diesel, one of the quietest bikers. Older, leather-worn from years on the road. He held a manila envelope, his face carved with tension. Steele stood slowly. What kind of problem? Diesel handed him the envelope. You should look inside. Steele opened it. Hawk leaned over his shoulder. Both men stiffened. Diesel looked at Ethan, careful, hesitant, like he didn't want to scare him, but also couldn't hide what he already knew. Vance wasn't working alone. Ethan's stomach dropped so fast he felt dizzy. What? What does that mean? He whispered. Steele crouched again, sliding the papers behind his back so Ethan couldn't see the details yet. Kid, he said gently. That man who was following you, he's part of something bigger, Diesel added quietly. We found communications. Vance has partners. People who don't exactly like law enforcement or bikers or anyone telling them what to do. Ethan's throat tightened. Who? Steele hesitated. He didn't want to say it, but he wouldn't lie. Not to this kid. An organized crime network. Your father took something from them before he disappeared. They think you know where it is. Ethan's knees went weak. I don't know anything. I swear I don't know. Diesel knelt beside him. We believe you. But they don't. And that's the problem. Steele added. But you're not alone now. Not anymore. He tapped his radio. All units, he said calmly. Tighten perimeter. Across the parking lot, engines rumbled again. Deep, controlled, unified. Every biker shifted formation, expanding outward, scanning the neighborhood. Parents filming dropped their phones. Teachers froze mid-sentence. Even the officers turned, suddenly alert. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Hawk's hand rested protectively on Ethan's shoulder. Look at me, Hawk said. You're safe. You're with us. But Ethan swallowed. What if there are more coming? Steele's eyes locked onto the far end of the street. A dark van turned the corner. Slow. Too slow. Another vehicle followed. Then another. Diesel muttered. Well, that answers that question. The vehicles kept rolling in, one after another. Tinted windows, unfamiliar plates, engines rumbling with the same predatory tone Vance's voice had carried. Hawk stepped in front of Ethan immediately. Steele stood beside him, jaw set. Diesel raised 2 fingers, and the entire line of Hell's Angels tightened, forming an unbreakable circle around the school. Children inside pressed their faces to the windows. Teachers gasped. Parents backed up with their phones, trembling. Even the officers reached for their radios. Ethan stared at the vehicles approaching, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. They're here for me. Steele didn't look away from the approaching convoy. They're going to be real disappointed, he said calmly, when they realize 83 Hell's Angels are between them and the boy. Ethan felt his breath catch. This wasn't just danger. This wasn't just fear. This was the moment everything changed. Steele didn't blink. Kid, he said softly, stay behind us. The first van rolled to a stop. A door cracked open. A boot hit the pavement, and the real war began. The first van door opened with a slow, deliberate creak. A heavy boot stepped out. Black, polished, military-grade. Then another. A woman unfolded herself from the cab, tall and sharp-featured, face hidden behind dark sunglasses and a tactical jacket. She didn't look like Vance. Didn't move like him either. This woman was precise, too precise. She glanced around the parking lot, taking in the bikers, the officers, the terrified parents hugging the sidewalk. Then her gaze landed on Ethan, tucked behind Steele and Hawk. Her jaw flexed once. That was enough for Steele. The biker stepped forward, not charging, not aggressive, just claiming space like a man who'd fought enough battles to know exactly when one was about to start. You lost, Steele called out. The woman didn't answer. Another van door opened, then another. Soon, 6 operatives stood in a loose formation near the curb. Each one dressed the same way. Dark tactical clothing, heavy boots, hands resting casually near concealed weapons as if they were taking a stroll through a park. Hawk's fingers curled into fists. Diesel subtly shifted, placing himself at an angle that gave him a full view of the whole group. Ethan pressed closer into Steele's back, trembling so hard his teeth chattered. He didn't know these people, but he knew the feeling. Danger. The same kind he felt when Vance had cornered him in parking lots. The same kind that lived behind threatening texts and shadowed doorways. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Finally, the woman lifted her chin and spoke. "Our business isn't with you," she said, voice cold as winter metal. "Hand over the boy." Hawk actually laughed. A short, stunned huff like he couldn't believe someone just said that to 83 Hell's Angels. "You must be out of your damn mind," Hawk growled. The woman didn't react. "We're not here for a fight." Steele stepped forward again. "Then you came to the wrong town." The woman exhaled slowly like she was bored. "The man you arrested, Marcus Vance, was retrieving stolen property. Property worth more than you can imagine. And that boy knows where it is." Diesel's eyes narrowed. "The kid doesn't know anything." The woman didn't even blink. "His father stole encrypted files containing financial records, offshore accounts, and evidence that could bring down a very powerful organization. The boy is our only lead." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, from teachers, from parents, and even the officers went pale. Steele's voice dropped dangerously low. "We don't hand children over to criminals." The woman shrugged, "Not asking for your approval, just asking you to move." "And I'm just telling you," Steele said, "that you aren't getting anywhere near him." The woman shook her head like this was all an inconvenience. "We've invested significant resources into locating this child. We're not leaving empty-handed." "Then you're not leaving at all," Hawk snapped. The woman's expression hardened. "This won't end well for you." Diesel cracked his knuckles. "Lady, you are greatly underestimating how well today can go for us." But the woman wasn't listening anymore. She flicked her fingers, and the others spread slightly, forming a semicircle. Police officers tensed, but didn't step forward. They were outnumbered, outpositioned, and clearly not trained for whatever this was. Principal Martinez, standing behind the doors, slapped a hand over her mouth. Ethan's breathing grew sharp and fast. "Steele, they're going to get me. They're going to." Steele didn't turn around. His voice stayed steady and warm. "No one gets you," he murmured. "Not while we're breathing." The operatives stepped closer. Hawk leaned toward Steele. "We can't fight here. Kids are inside." "I know," Steele replied softly. "But they chose the battlefield, not us." He raised his radio halfway, about to call a full lockdown, when a growl of engines thundered from behind the school. Not police cars, not emergency trucks, more motorcycles, familiar ones. The Hells Angels who were patrolling the neighborhood, those from the Outer Watch, came roaring around the back lot like a red and white tidal wave. Their engines weren't just loud. They were furious, echoing through every hallway of the school. They braked hard, skidding into position behind the operatives, effectively trapping them between two lines of bikers. 83 became far more. The operatives stiffened. Steele's radio crackled. "Perimeter secure." Steele's voice sharpened. "Good. Hold positions." The woman's confident mask slipped for the first time, a small crack. "Think carefully," Steele said, stepping forward just enough to establish dominance. "You're surrounded by men who don't scare easily. You touch this kid, you touch a single hair on his head," he pointed at Ethan, "and you'll need a whole lot more vans." For a moment, it felt like the world stopped spinning. The operatives tensed. The bikers braced. The officers drew in a breath, but didn't move. Then, someone inside the school screamed. Not a frightened scream, a warning. "They have weapons." The words hit like lightning. The operatives reached into their jackets. At the same moment, half the bikers reached behind their backs. Steele grabbed Ethan and shoved him behind a concrete pillar. "Down, kid. Now." Ethan dropped, covering his head, knees burning against the pavement. The first operative lifted something, black, tactical. But before she could level it, a deafening blast split the air. Not a gunshot. A motorcycle revving at full throttle. The gear slammed so hard the back tires smoked as it lurched forward. One of the outer ring bikers, Blaze, a legend among them, shot between the rows like a rocket, his bike fishtailing dangerously. Blaze drove straight into the operative's position. The impact didn't hit her, but forced her to dive aside. Her weapon clattered across the pavement, skidding under a police cruiser. Chaos exploded. Bikers swarmed. Officers yelled. Operatives shouted orders. Kids pressed against the windows, crying. Blaze slid off his bike and tackled one of the armed operatives before they could regroup. Another operative swung at Diesel. Diesel stepped aside and dropped him with one hit. Clean and efficient. Steele lifted Ethan into his arms and sprinted towards safer cover as Hawk roared into the fray, intercepting two operatives who tried to flank the school entrance. In seconds, the tide turned. The operatives were overwhelmed, pinned, disarmed, and face down on the pavement. Police officers rushed in to cuff them, breathless and trembling. Parents sobbed. Teachers collapsed into chairs. Children in the windows cheered. And Ethan clung to Steele's vest, crying silently into the leather, the adrenaline finally crashing through him. Steele brushed a hand over his hair. "It's over," he murmured. "You're safe." But Diesel, standing over the fallen operatives, shook his head. "It's not over," he muttered. "This was planned, coordinated." Hawk stepped beside him. "So what's next?" Diesel looked toward Ethan, fragile, shaking, exhausted, and his voice was grim. "Next, we find out who's really running this operation." For a long moment, the world was nothing but ringing. Sirens, radios, panicked voices, all blurring into one hollow throb inside Ethan's head. Steele kept an arm around him, steady and protective, but the boy couldn't stop shaking. His breath stuttered in small, broken gulps. His hands clung to Steele's vest like it was the only solid thing in a world that had just tried to swallow him whole. "You're good, kid," Steele murmured, voice low and warm. "You're all right. I got you." But Ethan didn't feel all right. He felt like the ground could open up again at any second. Hawk stomped toward them, wiping sweat and road dust off his arms. His voice was sharp with leftover adrenaline. "Everyone secured. Cops are loading them now." Diesel approached slower, calmer, but the look in his eyes said everything Ethan needed to know. This wasn't finished. Not even close. Principal Martinez rushed over, breathless and pale. "Steele, Ethan, dear God, are you hurt? Is he hurt?" Steele shook his head. "He's scared. That's all." Martinez crouched down beside Ethan. "Sweetheart, listen to me. You're incredibly brave. This is not your fault." But Ethan wasn't hearing her. He stared past the police cruisers, past the operatives now cuffed on the ground, past the stunned crowd. Someone had organized this. Someone knew exactly where he'd be. Someone who shouldn't. His voice trembled when it finally broke free. "Who? Who told them where to find me?" The question hit every adult like a hammer. Diesel exchanged a grim look with Steele. "We're working on that," Diesel said quietly. Police officers began shouting instructions. Parents cried into their phones, and the last of the operatives were shoved into squad cars. One of them, the woman, lifted her head just enough to glare at Ethan through the tinted glass. Not hatred, not anger, calculation, a promise that this wasn't over. Steele noticed the look immediately. He stepped forward and rapped the cruiser window with his knuckles. The woman's eyes snapped to him. Steele leaned in close. "You made one mistake," he said, voice soft but lethal. "You walked into a school filled with kids. You came armed, and you came for someone under our protection." The woman smirked slightly. "Protection ends," she murmured through the glass, "when the organization decides it does." Steele didn't move. "Your organization ends today, whether you like it or not." The cruiser door slammed shut, and the vehicles rolled out of the parking lot one by one. But even once they were gone, the tension didn't ease. Parents hustled their crying children inside. Teachers blocked the view of the windows. Police tried to calm the chaos, but everything still felt tight, brittle, and dangerous. Diesel motioned for Steele and Hawk to step aside. They formed a small circle a few feet away, though Ethan could still hear. This wasn't random, Diesel said flatly. Vance couldn't have coordinated this alone. Someone else told them where to find the boy. Hawk frowned. One of the teachers? A parent? No, Steele said. It's got to be someone who knew timing, knew pickup protocol, knew the day Ethan had counseling. Principal Martinez stiffened. Wait, you're saying someone in the system helped them? Diesel didn't answer. He didn't need to. Martinez's face drained of color. Oh my God, she whispered. Mrs. Palmer. Who? Steele demanded. Martinez swallowed. She was a counselor here. She had access to all student records, schedules, and family information. She was let go 3 months ago for ethics violations, but she still has contacts on staff. Diesel nodded slowly. That's our leak. Ethan's heart dropped, but before anyone could react, a radio crackled on one of the officers' belts. A sharp, frantic voice cut through the air. Unit 7 to dispatch. Possible break-in at the Brooks residence. Front door forced. House ransacked. Suspects fled. Steele's jaw clenched. Hawk stiffened. Diesel muttered a quiet curse. Principal Martinez covered her mouth. His house. Ethan froze. My room. Steele knelt in front of him again. Kid, listen to me. What's in your room? Anything valuable. Anything they'd go looking for. Ethan shook his head. Just my stuff. My books. He stopped. A cold dread ran through him. His backpack. He'd hidden something inside. Something his father had given him the night before he disappeared. It wasn't the encrypted files everyone was looking for. It was worse. It was a key. A physical key with a number engraved on it. His father's last words echoed in his memory. Keep this safe. Don't tell anyone. When the time is right, you'll know what to do. Steele saw the terror hit him and grabbed his shoulders gently but firmly. What is it, Ethan? What's in that house? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. My dad. He gave me a key. Before he left. He said it was important. I hid it in my backpack. Steele's eyes widened a fraction. Diesel straightened sharply. Hawk let out a low, stunned exhale. Kid, Hawk said, that's not just a key. That's what they're really after. Diesel added, if those operatives knew you had it, Vance wasn't just hunting you for information. He was hunting you because you're the only one who can access whatever your father hid. Steele finished the sentence. You became the target. The world tilted beneath Ethan. His throat tightened. I didn't mean to. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know what to do. Steele grabbed him and pulled him in gently, holding the shaking boy against his chest. It's okay. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. You're safe now. But Diesel wasn't soothed. His gaze swept across the street, scanning every car, every rooftop, every possible angle. Steele, he said quietly, this isn't a rescue anymore. Steele nodded slowly. No, he said. It's a hunt. Hawk cracked his knuckles. So where do we take the kid? Steele looked down at Ethan, pale, trembling, scared out of his mind. Somewhere no one's getting within a mile of him, Steele said. Then he lifted his radio. All units, prep convoy. We're moving the boy. Principal Martinez stepped forward, voice shaking. Where will he go? Steele didn't look away from Ethan as he answered. Home. Our home. The engines ignited around them. Dozens of Harleys roaring like thunder. Ethan swallowed, overwhelmed. Where? Where is that? He whispered. Steele rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. With the angels, he said, where no one touches you ever. But as bikers formed tight ranks around them, Diesel lingered at the edge of the formation, staring toward the distant road. His voice was low, almost too quiet to hear. They didn't try to take him, Diesel murmured. They tried to test us. Hawk frowned. Why? Diesel didn't blink. Because whoever runs that organization hasn't shown up yet. The last police cruiser pulled away from the school, its taillights shrinking into the dark until they vanished behind the trees lining the road. For the first time in what felt like years, the parking lot went silent. No shouting, no threats, no handcuffs clattering, just the echo of what had almost happened and what had finally ended. Ethan stood between Hawk and Steele, His fingers twisted in the fabric of his jacket. His whole body still shook. Even though Vance, the man who had filled his life with fear since his father disappeared, was gone in the back of a police car. But fear doesn't disappear when the danger does. It hangs on. It clings. Hawk knelt down a little so Ethan didn't have to look up so far. His voice dropped into that gravel-deep calm that never failed. "You're safe now, kid. He's not coming back. Not tonight. Not ever again." Ethan nodded, but his voice didn't work yet. He kept trying to swallow air that didn't seem to settle in his lungs. Steele crouched on his other side. "You did everything right, Ethan. You ran. You called for help. You trusted us. That's courage, kid. Real courage." Ethan's lip trembled. He said he'd always find me no matter what." Hawk's jaw flexed. "Not rage, something colder, darker. He won't find you tonight." Diesel stepped forward from the bikes, visor raised, expression unreadable behind his dark eyes. "That key you gave us," he said, quiet but sharp. "The one your father left you. It's bigger than Vance. Bigger than anything you should have been dragged into." Ethan swallowed. "I didn't know what to do with it." "You did exactly what you should have done," Diesel replied. "You got it to people who can help." Principal Martinez hovered a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. Her face was a blend of shock, guilt, and the kind of exhaustion that settles in after adrenaline fades. "I still can't believe a counselor." Martinez shook her head, disgusted. Mrs. Palmer knew exactly where Ethan would be. She gave Vance the information to ambush him. "I've already reported her. She's been arrested, pending a full investigation." Diesel muttered. "She's lucky the cops got her first." Hawk gave him a warning look, but didn't disagree. Martinez looked at Ethan, voice softer now. "You don't need to worry about her anymore. She won't be allowed anywhere near you again." Ethan didn't say anything. His shoulders curled slightly inward, protective, scared of the next blow, even if it wasn't coming. Martinez exhaled shakily. "I wish I could offer you a safe place tonight, but I can't let you go back to that house. And with your mother working double shifts at the hospital and the break-in, the system will place you somewhere tomorrow. But for tonight," she looked helplessly toward Hawk. "He needs a stable adult he trusts." Hawk stood up slowly. "He ain't going back to that house. And he ain't spending the night in some cold office chair at the station. He's coming with us." Martinez hesitated. "Is that allowed?" Steele crossed his arms. "You saw what he walked into. You really think any officer in their right mind's going to object to us keeping him safe for the night?" Diesel added, quietly but unshakably, "He'll be watched every second. Fed, warm, protected." Steele said, glancing at Ethan, "We'll talk tomorrow with the detectives and his mother. Make sure he lands with someone who deserves him." Ethan's eyes lifted. "Can I go with you?" Hawk met his gaze. "Kid, you already did the hardest part. Asked for help. Now let somebody give it. You're not sleeping alone tonight." A tiny breath left Ethan. Relief. Fear. A mix of both. Martinez's shoulders eased. "If Ethan wants to go, and his mother agrees when we reach her, I'll sign off on it until morning." Ethan nodded. I don't want to be alone." "You won't be," Hawk said. The brothers moved in unison, a silent choreography of a club that had done this before for others in different towns under different moons. Diesel rolled Ethan's bike helmet toward him. "Here," he said. "You're riding with Hawk." Ethan blinked. "But I've never." "You'll be fine." Diesel rested a hand on his shoulder, surprisingly gentle for a man his size. "We'll be right beside you the whole way." Hawk guided Ethan to his bike, a massive matte black machine with silver bars and worn leather grips. He swung the spare helmet off the back and settled it carefully onto Ethan's head. "Too tight?" Hawk asked. Ethan shook his head. "You hold on to me like you're scared I'll fly away." Ethan managed a tiny smile. "You're too big to fly." Hawk barked a laugh. "There he is." The other bikers mounted their machines. Engines rumbled alive one by one, vibrations echoing through the pavement. The nightlit parking lot transformed into a field of headlights. white beams cutting through the dark like searchlights guarding a fortress. Principal Martinez watched them, disbelief softening into something that might have been gratitude. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you did more than survive tonight. You chose the right people to trust." Hawk revved the bike once, low and steady. "Ready, kid?" Ethan nodded and wrapped his arms around Hawk's waist. "Yeah, I'm ready." Diesel signaled. Steel signaled back. Then all 83 bikes rolled forward together, surrounding Hawk and Ethan in a moving shield. Front, back, both sides, a wall of chrome, steel, and loyalty. No one was getting near that kid tonight. As they pulled out onto the road, the wind hit Ethan's face, cold but clean. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel trapped or scared or alone. He felt carried, held, protected. Hawk's voice thundered over the engine loud enough for Ethan to hear. "Hang on, kid. We're taking you home." Ethan pressed his forehead against Hawk's back. And for one night, maybe for the first night in his whole life, he believed him. The night swallowed the road ahead as 83 headlights carved through the darkness in a perfect formation. Ethan held on to Hawk, fingers locked around the biker's leather vest, feeling the engine thunder beneath him like a heartbeat made of steel and fire. Cold air whipped past his cheeks. But for the first time, the wind didn't feel like danger approaching. It felt like an escape. It felt like freedom. It felt like being carried away from everything that had ever hurt him. Hawk's voice rumbled back through the wind. "You doing okay back there, kid?" Ethan tightened his arms around him, nodding, even though Hawk couldn't see it. "Yeah, I'm okay." Behind them, Steel and Diesel rode close enough that Ethan could see the blur of their headlights when he dared glance over his shoulder. The rest of the bikers surrounded him like a moving fortress, a wall of chrome and muscle that made the shadows on the road feel small for once. They weren't just escorting him, they were shielding him. Miles later, the formation turned down a long industrial lane. The road was cracked from age, weeds pushing through the faded paint lines, but every biker rolled over it like it was sacred ground. At the end of the street stood a huge steel building with old brick walls and a wide slanted roof. The outside looked like a forgotten warehouse, but warm yellow lights glowed from the windows. Their clubhouse. Hawk eased to a stop. Engines cut out one by one until the air settled, filled only by the soft ticking of cooling metal. Ethan stared up at the building. "This is where you all live." Hawk chuckled. "We live all over the damn place. But this is home." Diesel stepped off his bike first, stretching his back until it popped. "Come on, kid," he said, nodding toward the double doors. "Let's get you inside." Steel walked behind Ethan as he followed Hawk up the steps. Not pushing, not hurrying, just there, like a wall. A good wall. The moment the door swung open, warmth hit Ethan's face. The glow of hanging lamps washed over old couches, a long wooden table scarred with years of knife marks and spilled drinks, framed patches on the walls, a TV mounted above a battered bar, and shelves filled with helmets, photos, and pieces of history. It smelled like leather, engine grease, and something sweet, stew, maybe, simmering in the kitchen. Hawk looked down at Ethan. "Kid, welcome to the den." The door closed behind them. Inside, the world suddenly felt small in a good way. Safe, contained, held. Several of the bikers peeled off toward the bar. Others grabbed drinks from a cooler, and a few headed for the couches, but none of them left Ethan alone. Not one. Steele disappeared for a moment, then returned holding a brown hoodie. "This is one of ours," he said, draping it over Ethan's shoulders. "A little big, but it'll keep you warm." Ethan pulled it closer around him, burying his hands in the sleeves. It smelled like the clubhouse, like smoke, spices, and safety. His voice trembled when he spoke. "Thanks." Diesel came over with a steaming mug. "Hot cocoa," he lifted an eyebrow. "Don't tell the others I know how to make it." Ethan let out the tiniest laugh, the kind that sounded surprised to exist at all. "I won't." Hawk took a seat on the long couch and patted the cushion beside him. "Sit, kid." Ethan did. The room dimmed a little as bikers moved around. Some talking quietly, some were keeping watch near the windows. A few were already on their phones, relaying the night's events to the detectives they knew, telling them exactly where Ethan was, and confirming he wouldn't be left alone for a second. No one was celebrating. No one was relaxing. Every man in that room treated the night like unfinished business. Diesel pulled over a chair and turned it backward, resting his arms on the back. "You did good tonight," he said. "Brave as hell." Ethan looked into his cocoa. "I was scared the whole time." Steele sat on the floor beside the couch, leaning back against it like a guard dog. "Bravery ain't the absence of fear," he said. "Bravery is what you do while you're scared. And you did everything right." Ethan blinked hard, eyes burning. "Vance always said no one would believe me, that I was just a confused kid, that nobody would ever help me because I wasn't worth protecting." Hawk's jaw clenched so deeply that Ethan could hear the grind of teeth. But his voice, when it came, was steady. Vance was wrong. Diesel nodded. Dead wrong. Steele didn't say anything at first. He just reached up and set a hand on Ethan's shoulder, grounding him before the weight of his own words could crush him. Ethan's breath shuddered out. A tear landed on his fingers. He wiped it away fast. Hawk leaned back slightly, looking at him with that steady, unbreakable gaze. "Kid, you survived him. You outsmarted him. You protected that key that can help the authorities bring down an entire criminal network. And on top of all that," Hawk paused, "you trusted the right people. That takes guts most adults don't have." Ethan swallowed. "What happens now?" Diesel rubbed the back of his neck. "In the morning, detectives are going to want a statement. They'll need to know what your father told you about the key, where it leads, what it opens. They're going to want to know exactly what happened tonight." Ethan nodded slowly, already feeling panicked again. Steele lifted his chin. "And you're not doing any of it alone." Hawk pointed at each man in the room. "We'll be there. Every step, every word." For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then quietly, as if admitting something dangerous, "I don't want to go back to that house. Ever." Hawk's face softened. "You won't. But what if the system puts me somewhere bad?" Ethan whispered. "They won't," Hawk said. "How do you know?" he asked. "Because," Steele answered, "we're going to make damn sure the people who handle your case know exactly what's at stake. And we don't walk away from kids who need us." Diesel nodded. "You're ours now, kid. You got 83 men who will vouch for you and fight for you." Steele added, "And stand with you until you land somewhere that treats you right." Hawk finished, "Or you stay with us." Ethan's throat closed. His eyes filled again, but this time the tears didn't feel like fear. They felt like a release. Something inside him cracked open quietly, like the soft snap of a frozen branch finally beginning to thaw. He whispered, barely audible, "Thank you." Hawk's large palm came to rest on the back of Ethan's head, steady and warm. "Get some rest, kid," he murmured. "Tomorrow's a big day." Diesel folded a blanket across Ethan's lap. Steele lowered the lights. A few bikers pulled out sleeping bags and set up near the door, forming a literal human wall between Ethan and the world. He sipped the last of his cocoa, tucked himself into the corner of the couch, and let his eyes close. For the first time in months, he fell asleep without fear. Morning sunlight spilled across the clubhouse like someone finally lifting the weight off the night. It touched the scuffed wood floors, the patched leather jackets hanging on hooks, the row of silent bikes outside, and eventually it reached Ethan, curled up on the long couch with a blanket draped over him. He blinked awake slowly. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then he smelled coffee, heard low voices, and saw Hawk sitting at the table, watching over him like he had never left his post. Steele was leaning against the bar, arms crossed, eyes tracking every window. Diesel sat on a stool, boots propped on a crate, cleaning under his fingernails with a dull pocket blade. Blaze stood near the front door, silent, stoic, the presence that made any intruder's courage die before they even knocked. They had stayed awake for him all night. Hawk noticed Ethan stirring. "Hey, kid," he said softly. You hungry? Ethan nodded automatically, clutching the blanket. It still felt strange to be in a place where morning didn't mean fear. Steele brought over a plate. Pancakes and bacon, the kind of breakfast you make for someone you actually care about. Ethan ate slowly, still processing everything that had happened the night before. The men didn't pressure him to talk. They just stayed close. The room filled with a quiet, protective warmth. Then a knock hit the door. Not aggressive, but official. Blaze opened it. Two detectives stood there, badges visible, expressions serious but not unkind. Behind them, Ethan's mother rushed forward, her scrubs still on from her night shift at the hospital, her face streaked with tears. "Ethan!" she cried, pushing past the detectives. Ethan jumped up from the couch and ran into her arms. She held him so tight he could barely breathe, sobbing into his hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I should have been there." "It's okay, Mom," Ethan whispered. "I'm okay." She pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. "The police called me. They told me everything. About Vance, about the operatives, about..." She looked at the bikers, her voice breaking. "About these men who protected you." Hawk stepped forward gently. "Ma'am, your boy's safe. That's all that matters." Mrs. Brooks turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "How do I even begin to thank you? All of you." "You don't," Steele said quietly. "We did what needed to be done." One of the detectives cleared his throat. "Mrs. Brooks, Ethan, we need to ask some questions about the key. About what your husband told you before he disappeared." Ethan's mother tensed. She looked at her son, then at the detectives. "I'll tell you everything I know. My husband, David, worked as an accountant for a financial firm. He discovered they were laundering money for organized crime. He gathered evidence, encrypted files, account numbers, everything. He was going to turn it over to the FBI, but..." Her voice broke, "but they found out." He gave Ethan the key to a safety deposit box where he hid physical copies of everything. Then he disappeared. "I don't know if he's alive or..." She couldn't finish. Ethan held her hand. "Dad said to keep it safe. He said when the time was right, I'd know what to do." The detective nodded. "You did exactly right, son. That key is going to help us bring down a major criminal organization. Your father's evidence will save lives." The interview that followed was thorough but gentle. The detectives let Ethan and his mother set the pace. And every time Ethan hesitated, Hawk squeezed the back of his chair. He never sat alone. Not for a second. When it was over, one detective shook Hawk's hand. "What you did yesterday, all of you, that was extraordinary. You saved this boy's life." Hawk nodded once. "Just doing what's right." After the detectives left, Mrs. Brooks sat on the couch with Ethan, holding him close. She looked at the bikers, her voice thick with emotion. "I work double shifts, sometimes triple. I'm barely home. Ethan's been dealing with this nightmare alone because I couldn't afford to take time off. The system failed us. But you," she gestured at the men, "you showed up. Strangers showed up for my son." Diesel stepped forward. "Ma'am, with all respect, we're not strangers anymore." Mrs. Brooks wiped her eyes. No, you're not." She looked at Ethan. "Baby, what do you want? Where do you feel safe?" Ethan looked at his mother, then at the bikers who'd risked everything for him. "I want to be with Mom." "But..." He hesitated. "I don't feel safe at home. Not yet." Steele crouched in front of them both. "What if we made sure you were safe? What if we kept watch? Made sure no one from that organization ever got near you again?" Mrs. Brooks's eyes widened. "You would do that?" "We're already doing it," Hawk said. "We've got men stationed around your neighborhood. We'll keep them there until the FBI rounds up everyone connected to this network." Diesel added, "And if you ever need anything, day or night, you call us." Ethan's mother broke down again, overwhelmed. I don't know how to repay this." "You don't," Hawk said firmly. "You just take care of that boy. Love him. Keep him safe. That's all we ask." But Steele stepped forward with something else in mind. "Ma'am, there's one more thing. If you're comfortable with it, we'd like to stay involved in Ethan's life. Check in on him. Make sure he's doing okay. Maybe teach him some things. Give him some positive male role models. Mrs. Brooks looked at Ethan. Would you like that, honey? Ethan nodded emphatically. Yes, please. She smiled through her tears. Then yes. Absolutely yes. The arrangement was made. Mrs. Brooks would take Ethan home, but the bikers would maintain a protective presence. They'd check in regularly. They'd be there if needed. And most importantly, Ethan would never feel alone again. As Ethan and his mother prepared to leave, Hawk walked them to the door. He knelt down in front of Ethan one last time. Kid, you've got our number now. You've got our word. Anything happens, anything at all, you call. Understand? Ethan nodded. Then, impulsively, he threw his arms around Hawk's neck. The big biker stiffened for just a second, then wrapped his arms around the boy, holding him gently. You're gonna be okay, Hawk whispered. You're gonna be more than okay. When they finally left, the clubhouse felt quieter. Steele stood beside Hawk, watching through the window as Mrs. Brooks's car pulled away, escorted by a line of motorcycles. Think he'll be all right? Steele asked. Hawk nodded. Yeah, he's got his mom. He's got us. He's got a future now. Diesel joined them. FBI called. They're executing search warrants across 3 states. Ethan's key is opening doors nobody knew existed. That kid just helped bring down one of the biggest money laundering operations in the region. He's a hero, Blaze said quietly from across the room. He just doesn't know it yet. Hawk smiled. He will. Give him time. Weeks passed. The FBI's investigation expanded. Dozens of arrests were made. The criminal network that had hunted Ethan crumbled. Marcus Vance and his associates faced decades in prison. Mrs. Palmer, the counselor who'd leaked information, lost her license and awaited trial. But more importantly, Ethan started to heal. His mother reduced her hours with help from Victim Services Compensation. The bikers kept their word, visiting regularly, taking Ethan to ball games, teaching him about bikes, and showing him what it meant to have people who showed up. One Saturday afternoon, 3 months after that terrifying day at the school, the Hells Angels threw a barbecue at the clubhouse. Ethan and his mother were the guests of honor. The boy ran around with some of the bikers' kids, laughing, playing, being 9 years old in a way he'd never been allowed to before. Hawk stood at the grill, flipping burgers, watching Ethan with a satisfied smile. Steele walked up beside him. Look at him, Steele said. Hard to believe that's the same scared kid from 3 months ago. He was never just scared, Hawk replied. He was surviving. Now he's living. There's a difference. Diesel joined them, beer in hand. His mom told me he's sleeping through the night now. No more nightmares. Good, Hawk said. That's really good. Ethan ran over, breathless and grinning. Hawk, Steele, Diesel, can you teach me how to do a wheelie? Hawk laughed. Kid, you're 9. Let's start with how to ride first. Then we'll talk wheelies in about 10 years. Ah, come on. Ethan protested, but he was smiling. Mrs. Brooks approached, carrying a plate of food. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. For giving us our lives back. Hawk shook his head. You gave yourselves your lives back. We just cleared the path. She hugged him. Then Steele. Then Diesel. Your family now, she said. You know that, right? Steele's eyes got a little misty. Yes, ma'am. We know. As the sun set over the clubhouse, casting golden light across the parking lot full of motorcycles and people who'd become family, Ethan sat on the steps with Hawk. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Anything, kid. Why did you help me? You didn't even know me. Hawk thought for a moment. Because somebody should have. Because kids deserve to be protected. Because standing by when someone needs help isn't who we are. Ethan nodded, processing this. I want to be like you when I grow up. Help people like you helped me. Hawk's hand rested on the boy's shoulder. Then you will be. And you'll be even better, because you'll remember what it felt like to need help. That's a gift, kid. A painful one, but a gift. The town would always remember the day 83 bikers surrounded a school to protect one boy from a kidnapper. But Ethan would remember something else. The day those same bikers gave him hope. The day he learned that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up when the world tries to break you. It's the people who stand between you and danger without hesitation. It's the people who say, "You're ours now," and mean it with everything they have. And when Ethan looked at the stars that night, he didn't feel hunted anymore. He didn't feel alone. He felt chosen. He felt safe. He felt loved. And if Ethan's journey and the brotherhood that rose around him meant something to you, take a second to like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next story. Every click helps us keep telling these powerful biker tales.